Aita for refusing to switch seats with a Karen on a flight, and she got kicked off for making a scene? Let me set the stage. I, 28M, was flying home after a long week of work travel. I'd been hopping between cities for various client meetings, and I was exhausted. All I wanted was to settle into my pre-booked, extra legroom window seat and get some sleep. I'm a pretty big guy, 6 feet 3 inches, so having a bit of extra legroom is a big deal for me. I'd specifically chosen and paid for this seat months ago when I booked the flight because I knew I'd be dead tired by the end of this trip. The flight was fully booked, and everyone was shuffling down the aisle trying to get to their seats. I had my noise-canceling headphones on, my carry-on stowed above, and my neck pillow ready to go. I sat down, leaned back, and started zoning out. Just as I was getting comfortable, I noticed a woman, let's call her Karen, mid-40s, the stereotypical short blonde bob, hovering near my seat. I didn't think much of it at first, assuming she was just waiting to pass. But then, I saw her staring directly at me, and she gestured for me to take my headphones off. I pulled them off, and she immediately launched into her demand, not even asking politely. "Excuse me, you're in my seat," she said, voice dripping with entitlement. "I need to sit here with my husband and kids." I blinked, confused, and checked my boarding pass just to be sure I was in the right seat. Yep, I was definitely in the correct seat, 14A, right by the window, just like I'd booked. I showed her my ticket. "Actually, this is my seat," I replied calmly, hoping this was just some misunderstanding. Karen, however, wasn't having it. "Well, I need to sit here with my family," she said again, this time with a sharper tone. "Can't you just switch seats with me? It's only fair." I looked over at where her family was sitting. Her husband and 2 teenage kids were across the aisle, in a middle and aisle seat. Her assigned seat, based on her ticket, was a middle seat in the row right in front of me. She was asking me to give up my window seat with extra legroom for her middle seat in regular economy. I politely told her, "I'm sorry, but I paid extra for this seat, and I really prefer the window. I'd rather not switch." Her face turned red. It was as if no one had ever told her no in her life. "Oh, come on," she huffed. "It's not that big of a deal. Just move to the middle seat. I need to sit next to my family." Her voice was getting louder, and passengers nearby started to glance over. I could feel the tension rising, but I was tired, sore, and in no mood to be guilted into giving up a seat I'd paid for, especially not for someone acting so entitled. "I'm really sorry, but no," I repeated, firmer this time. That's when she lost it. Karen started raising her voice, practically shouting about how I was being selfish and inconsiderate for not letting a mother sit with her family. She kept going on about how I was ruining their vacation and that I should be ashamed for refusing such a simple request. People were definitely watching now. The flight attendants hadn't made it to our row yet, but it was clear that Karen was causing a scene. Her husband, who was sitting across the aisle, looked embarrassed but didn't say anything. He just awkwardly looked away, pretending this wasn't happening. Karen, though, kept escalating. She crossed her arms and loudly said, "I demand you switch seats with me. I'm a mother. How dare you refuse me?" I was about to respond when one of the flight attendants finally arrived, having heard the commotion. She smiled politely and asked what the problem was. Before I could explain, Karen jumped in, pointing at me like I was some sort of criminal. "This man is refusing to switch seats with me so I can sit with my family. It's completely unreasonable." The flight attendant turned to me, and I calmly explained that I had paid for this specific seat, and I didn't want to move to a middle seat in another row. I also pointed out that her assigned seat was right in front of me, so she wasn't that far from her family anyway. The flight attendant nodded and then turned back to Karen. "Ma'am, I understand you'd like to sit with your family, but this passenger has the right to keep his seat. We can't force anyone to switch." Karen's face went from red to purple at this point. "So, you're saying this man is more important than a mother? You're not going to make him move?" she shrieked, causing the passengers in nearby rows to stare openly. The flight attendant remained professional but firm. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we can't ask someone to give up a seat they've paid for. We'll try to help you find a solution, but raising your voice isn't going to help." Karen wasn't having it. She started ranting about how unfair this was and how terrible the airline was for not accommodating her. At this point, she was practically shouting, and I could see people around us getting uncomfortable. The flight attendant, clearly trying to keep the situation under control, asked Karen to calm down, but she wouldn't stop. She kept going on about how she deserved the seat and how no one had any respect for mothers anymore. Then, the ultimate Karen line came out, "I'm going to have you fired for this." The flight attendant didn't flinch, but you could tell she was done with Karen's antics. She calmly said, "Ma'am, if you don't lower your voice and take your assigned seat, we're going to have to remove you from the plane." Karen looked stunned, as if she couldn't believe someone had dared to stand up to her. "You can't kick me off this plane. I'm with my family," she screeched. The flight attendant, now accompanied by a second crew member, repeated her warning, "Ma'am, if you don't comply, we will have no choice but to remove you from the flight." Karen stood there for a moment, sputtering, clearly not used to being told no in any capacity. But instead of backing down, she made the mistake of doubling down, continuing her rant at full volume. And that's when the second flight attendant gestured toward the front of the plane. "Ma'am, please gather your things and follow me." Karen tried to argue more, but at this point, the entire cabin was watching, and even her husband was motioning for her to stop. But it was too late. The flight attendants weren't giving her another chance. She was officially being escorted off the plane. I sat there, stunned, as Karen grabbed her bag and furiously marched down the aisle, still muttering under her breath. Her husband and kids remained seated, looking thoroughly embarrassed by the whole ordeal. I don't even know if they got off with her or not. Once she was gone, the flight attendants apologized to me for the disruption, and the rest of the passengers let out a collective sigh of relief. A few people even gave me sympathetic looks or mouthed, "Good for you." The flight took off without any further drama, and I finally got the peaceful flight I'd been hoping for. When I told my friends and family about the situation later, they were all on my side, saying I'd done nothing wrong and that Karen's behavior was way out of line. But part of me still wonders if I could have just switched seats to avoid the whole mess. So, Reddit, Aita for refusing to switch seats with Karen and causing her to get kicked off the flight? Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed these Reddit stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next one.